Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to attend the seminar, the first BorneoPsy 2021 as a participant. My name is Diana, come from the Faculty of Psychology and Education of University Malaysia Sabah. So today I'm going to share with you about a systematic literature review on the impacts of self-esteem towards psychological well-being among children from low-income background. First, let me introduce you a little bit about self-esteem. It is referred to individual's overall positive evaluation toward his or her self-worth, value, self-respect, self-confidence, and the price or like of individual toward him or herself, in which an individual is more likely to respect him or herself and considering own to be worthy when self-esteem was high for that individual. We can say that self-esteem is one of the significant psychological factors that contribute to individuals' health, quality life, subjective well-being, and happiness. Some scholars argue that as compared to those who come from well-off family backgrounds, when children were being raised in the low socioeconomic status or underprivileged background, lower levels of self-esteem were often developed among them. Children's psychological well-being could be negatively impacted by their disadvantaged economic backgrounds. Such financial disadvantages have directly or indirectly caused them to be at risk in developing externalizing problems, behavioral adjustment problems, mental illness, suicide thought, or other physical and psychological maladjustments. Therefore, with the curiosity about how self-esteem can be interrelated to children's family economic background and psychological well-being, the main objective of this review is to explore the relationship between economically disadvantaged, self-esteem, and psychological well-being among children and adolescents by using a systematic literature review technique. Next, we'll move to the methodology. For the method used, the articles that related to self-esteem and psychological well-being of low economic background children were retrieved from Scopus, which were guided by the Prisma 2020. The eligibility and exclusion criteria of the articles included were discussed and determined, which will be briefly explained in the next slide. This systematic review was started in June of 2021 by following the formatted procedures, while for the data abstraction and analysis, it is concentrated on specific studies that regarding to formulated questions. In this slide, the table shown was the eligibility and exclusion criteria decided and set by the reviewer according to the objective set. For the literature type, only journal research articles in English published in the year between 2012 and 2021 and recruited sample with the age 18 and below in their studies were included in the current review. Meanwhile, literature that are not journal, such as review papers, book chapter, conference paper, note, book series, conference proceeding, trade journal, and so on, and literature that were not published in English language, publication year that earlier than 2012, and studies that recruited sample with the age of 18 and above were excluded from the systematic review. Besides, index that were eligible for current review included social science citation, psychology, nursing, health professions, as well as arts and humanities. Other index such as medicine, biochemistry, genetics and molecular biology, environmental science, agricultural and biological science were excluded from the review. Next, as for the process of systematic review, we can look at clearly from the diagram. The process was divided by 4 parts, which is identification, screening, eligibility, and included stage. In the identification stage, the key terms were key into the Scopus, and there were 767 records identified through the database searching. And then in the screening process, the 767 literatures were screened through its title and abstract, and it came out 571 records excluded. Due to the literature type and not journal research articles published in underforeign language or not English and were published in the year of earlier than 2012. After the screening process, there were 196 full-text articles assessed for eligibility. 180 articles were excluded as it did not relate to research questions, not empirical study, articles not available in English, and not fulfill the age of sample. Finally, 16 studies were included in the synthesis. Next is the overview on included studies. Among the 16 studies included in the systematic review, 2 of it was longitudinal studies and the remaining 14 of it were cross-sectional design of studies. The 16 studies were carried out in different countries such as United States, China, Canada, Japan, Hong Kong, and Turkey, but included sample size from 116 to 16,550, with the age range of 1 to 17 years. Researchers of the 16 studies included used different self-reported instruments in assessing the sample's self-esteem, as well as psychological well-being and also their economic status. After that, we will have a brief overview on the reviewing results extracted from the studies included. According to the different studies, most of the results shown significant positive correlations between economic level and self-esteem of the children, with the meaning that low income levels, children scored lower levels of self-esteem. Furthermore, most of the studies showed the data of children's self-esteem significantly associated with psychological well-being of them. Accordingly, self-esteem among the children and adolescents were significant, negatively correlated to their depressive symptoms, anxiety, psychological distress, and mental health issues, and were significant positively correlated to life satisfaction and psychological well-being. By looking to the data reported in the studies included, the conclusion can be drawn as when children self-esteem higher, they were less likely of them to develop anxiety and depressive symptoms, as well as psychological distress and other mental health issues. High level of self-esteem among the children acts as protective factor for children, assisting them to have greater life satisfaction and better psychological well-being. However, there was a study included in current review showed that no significant relationship between income level and children's family and their own self-esteem level, as well as showing insignificant relationship among self-esteem and their psychological well-being. As we can see, the study conducted by Taylor et al. In 2015 in the United States, there were no significant relationship between academic level and self-esteem, and also not significant relationship between self-esteem and psychological well-being of the children. With the results that we have viewed through in the previous slide, the researchers explained that academic background was relatively significant in impacting children's self-esteem. Children being raised in low academic background tend to be concerned about negative comments from others about their own deprived conditions, as children in low academic households usually have less chance to acquire satisfying daily needs as other well-off family children. So, the lack of necessary supplies caused them to feel inferior and devalued, which led them to develop lower self-esteem, in turn makes them to be less likely to interact with peers from better academic backgrounds. Not only that, academic disadvantage among children's family will also cause to a poorer parental involvement during the children's developing years, and develop more parent-adolescent conflicts among them. Besides, scholars explain that when children develop poorer self-esteem, they refuse to interact with children from well-off family, as what I said just now, due to the inferiority among them regarding to their financial situations. On the other hand, mental health seems to be affected as well. They are more likely to be at a high risk in having mental health issues when the levels of self-esteem were lower than others. It can be explained that self-esteem among children can be a mediating role of linking the academic status and psychological well-being of them. Next, this review brings implications to the society as it is emphasizing the importance of self-esteem and psychological well-being of the youth, as well as emphasizing how academic disparity affecting mental health of the youth. This paper is calling for more effective and quality intervention programs for the affected populations, and also calling for the feasible and practical academic plans and policies to assist the civilian to break the poverty cycles. Nevertheless, some limitations showed up in this review paper as well. Firstly, self-report of measuring instruments was the main method applied in the studies included. Most of the studies included were in cross-sectional design, which means that the relationships of study variables are correlational and might be bidirectional, which make it difficult to draw conclusions on causal or temporal relationships among the variables. Other than that, studies included in the review were mostly in Western countries or China, and there were less related studies conducted in Southeast Asia. To conclude for current SLR paper, we can say that this paper is providing a systematic review of low income status and the self-esteem as well as psychological well-being among children and adolescents with clear and predetermined inclusion and exclusion criteria. However, as the review only included articles that published in English language, which may have been influenced by publications bias or misrelevant articles published in other language. This review is significant as it highlights the need for further larger scale studies of children and adolescents with their self-esteem and psychological well-being within the low economic context, especially in Southeast Asia, in order to generate the most targeted solutions for the psychopathological problems among the young people. The professionals and social workers need to understand the factors that affecting children's mental health. So it is recommended for the scholars to explore and conduct more future study that regards to financial issues on other psychopathological problems by including a wider population from different age groups and ethnics. I think that's all for my sharing. Thank you so much for listening.